Hello athletes, Travis here with another video, and we are going to I tried to get specific on this video to tackle a question that I happen to get a lot kind of in the comment section, since I do talk so much about steady state and UT2 in particular, as well as heart rate training. But this question really pops up a lot, and that is it better to do my steady state continuous or to break it up into intervals? All right, and this almost always comes from people who break it up into intervals. I've never gotten a question from someone who does continuous steady state, and it's like, should I be breaking this up in intervals instead? All right, it always comes from people who are doing it kind of broken up. And so there's a couple different answers to this. There's a lot of nuance, and if you've been watching my channel, you know that I don't like to give just kind of black and white answers, because there are no black and white answers with training. There's all nuance, all right? And there's certainly kind of targets of kind of where you want to be and where you want to go, but there are also a lot of exceptions along the way based on where you are at in your training, kind of what your history is with training, what your goals are with training, and we're going to try to tackle that today with regard to this specific question. So, continuous steady state versus interval steady state. And so to kind of start at the end and work our way back, all right, the answer is that continuous steady state is going to provide a better training stimulus, all right? In no situation will discontinuous steady state match what you can accomplish for continuous steady state, all other things kind of being equal in terms of your technique and your fitness and whatnot. So if I take a high-level rower that has very good technique, has great conditioning and fitness, and they ask me, is it better for me to do 60 minutes of steady state or 2x30 or 3x20? The answer is always going to be 60 minutes, all right? And the reason for this is that UT2, all right, for those that are familiar with the term, but maybe not familiar with what it is short for, UT2 is short for oxygen utilization category 2, all right? So people will also talk a lot about category 1, so UT1. You won't get too many people talking about UT3, UT4. Usually we just call it something else, like zone 2 training or aerobic endurance, whatever it might be, or active recovery, but it's not a focal point of training for rowing, all right? Maybe for cycling or something like that, where competitions are hours and hours long. But for rowing, for oxygen utilization, all right, the goal of your oxygen utilization training is to expand the capillary beds within your circulatory system so that you can deliver more oxygen to your muscles, all right? And in order to do that effectively, you have to have a certain amount of cardiovascular pressure on your circulatory system, all right? And that's where the steady comes from, all right? You're putting a steady pressure against those capillary walls, all right, to kind of induce them to kind of make an adaptation, all right, to find new ways and better ways to deliver oxygen to the system. And anytime you relieve that cardiovascular pressure on those capillaries, you are going to you're going to decrease the training stimulus, all right? And anybody that is that follows their heart rate, you're going to know that as soon as you take a break, that heart rate is going to instantly drop, and it drops very quickly. And the more fit you are, the quicker that it's going to drop, all right? So even if you're taking a 30-second break, a 60-second break, you're losing that cardiovascular pressure. And then once you get back on, again, if you follow and you watch your heart rate, you'll notice that it does take a little bit of time for that cardiovascular pressure to rise back to the place that it was. Again, the more fit you are, the longer it's going to take you to get there. The less fit you are, the quicker it's going to be up there, all right? And that'll be important as we come back later to who is going to benefit more from breaking up their steady state, and who is going to, you're going to lose more than you're going to gain by doing so, all right? And so ultimately, for steady state, you need to maintain consistent cardiovascular pressure on your circulatory system in order to maximize the training effect. Now, are we talking huge, like you're going to get better in this situation and you're not going to get better in that situation? Absolutely not. All right, we're talking about kind of percentage points of efficiency of that steady state. All right, and we may be talking about fractions of a percentage points. All right, which has become more and more important the higher level of competition that you are. All right, and so if you're a high performance athlete, if you're a D1 college athlete, if you're an elite, pre-elite athlete, then you should be doing your steady state continuously, all right? Because percentage points matter in that case. You know, if you are less fit, certainly if you're just getting back into training, then there are a lot of other things that should be prioritized over those few percentage points, possibly fractions of percentage points, all right? So, but know that ultimately that is going to be your goal. Specifically, if you're competing and training for traditional rowing distances, all right, which are middle distance events, all right, 1,000 meter, 2,000 meter, all right, you're getting into a little bit more distance when you go into the head race, but even at the 500 meter mark, that is going to be an endurance-based event, all right? Kind of that split between kind of an endurance-based event and a long sprint is going to happen somewhere between the 300-meter mark and that 500-meter mark, depending on kind of who you are as an athlete. So then, when is it good to break up your intervals? And when is it not a good idea, or what are not good reasons for breaking up those intervals? And I'll start with that latter one first, all right? You should never break up your steady state to relieve pressure, physical pressure on your body, all right? So a lot of people will be like, well, it's better for my back, all right? You know, so my back gets really stiff if I'm sitting there for a long time, and if I break up my steady state, it lets me kind of get up and move. It relieves the pressure on my back. It might be your joints, your elbows, your knees, your shoulders, whatever it may be. If your reason for breaking up your steady state is physical, to provide physical relief, that is a bad thing, all right? And so, you know, you taking a break is more or less just a placebo, all right, to make it feel easier to repeat that volume, but you're still putting the same amount of volume of stress on the body, all right? And it is that stress which is going to exacerbate any of those issues with your body, all right? And so if you are one of those who feels like you need to break up steady state to kind of relieve some kind of physical ailment or stiffness or tightness or pain, hopefully not pain, but if it is pain, then you need to address those issues first, all right? And then you can kind of go back to getting the volume of steady state that you can without aggravating those issues, all right? And this is a hard ask for a lot of people, all right? Because that process is not a short process. It's very rarely going to be weeks or months. It's usually going to be seasons and possibly a year or two to kind of really fully address those things. That's not saying that you should stop putting in that volume for several seasons or a year or two, but you definitely need to kind of adjust your plan and listen to your body and say, well, if my body is telling me I can only row 15 or 20 minutes at a time before I need to get up and take a break, all right, then you need to be working on ways to either kind of strengthen different parts of your body, increase mobility, flexibility, so that you can progressively get to where, you know, you only need, one break every 30 minutes. And hopefully you don't need breaks at all. But the worst thing that you can do is just kind of accept the fact that in order to complete steady state volume, you need to break it up, all right? If you're in that situation, you need to do a functional analysis. You need to figure out what those issues are, what's causing those issues, and you need to address those issues moving forward. For young athletes, that's almost exclusively going to be technique related, all right? So there's some deficiency in your technique, all right? You're young, you haven't had, the hundreds of thousands of repetitions needed to develop good muscle memory and good execution, and perhaps you haven't even had the quality of coaching that you need to develop that technique, because the honest truth is most coaches aren't very good at teaching high levels of technique, and so you have to be careful with that. For older athletes, certainly older, more experienced athletes, it tends to come to mobility and flexibility, all right? Because that's what's we're going to kind of lose in age, especially in kind of a westernized culture, which is a lot of sitting, a lot of kind of stationary motion, not super active, not super mobile in terms of the career paths people are pursuing. Then that tends to kind of decrease that flexibility and mobility, and that loss of flexibility and mobility is going to cause imbalance in the body, and they're going to cause various aches and pains, kind of imbalance in development of some muscles versus other muscles, and so you need to kind of go and address that, whether it's a lot of stretching. You can go all the way to the David Goggins style and stretch them 2 hours a day, or you can just kind of pick up something like yoga or Tai Chi or something that's going to force yourself to kind of challenge yourself and stress your body in the sense of your mobility and flexibility. All right, so when can you break up steady state? When it is a good idea to break up steady state? And I'll say that the situations where it's good to break it up are almost exclusively mental. All right, and so if you are just getting back into training and just the idea of just sitting on an erg for 40 minutes or 60 minutes or more is just like beyond your mental capacity at that time, but you could do it with breaks, then do it with breaks, all right? Because that volume is going to be very important for your conditioning and for your return to fitness, all right? And so it's going to be much better to put in 4 sets of 10 minutes with plenty of break in between than it is to just do 20 minutes and really kind of struggle through that last 10 minutes and then be done. All right, and so you can use those breaks as a strategy to keep yourself mentally engaged and focused in the process. And then ideally, as you get more and more volume and the weeks go on and the months go on, then you will start to mentally condition as well as physically condition to the point where sitting on for 15 minutes at a time, no big deal. So you can do 3 15-minute intervals, all right? You've got an extra 5 minutes of volume at the end. And then, eventually maybe you can do 3 20-minute sets, all right? Because sitting on for 20 minutes isn't a big deal. And then you're getting in 60 minutes of volume in those sessions. So in that case, that is okay. Do it, because that volume is going to be a very important training stimulus for getting back into things and for developing fitness. And I would say volume kind of balanced with frequency is going to be the most important training stimuluses for getting back into things and for developing fitness in general. All right, those things are almost always going to overcome intensity in terms of the value that they bring to your training. All right, so keep that in mind. All right, and so break it up if you need to. Stay mentally fresh to kind of get there and be able to get down and get 10 minutes of quality, well executed rowing in. Get up, move around, sit down, do it again. All right, but know that your goal is to move to the point where you don't need those breaks, all right? And it's interesting that that rowing is really the only endurance sport that I've been exposed to where that's even a possibility, where people even think about doing that. Even rowers that go out and like run or spend a lot of time on the bike, none of you are, or certainly I've not encountered any of them that are like, well, I'm going to go get 50 minutes of running in, but I'm going to do it in 1 mile sections. So I'm going to take a break every mile and kind of stretch out. It's just not something that people do. If someone's going for a 1 hour bike ride, they're not going to ride for 20 minutes and take a break, and then ride for another 20 minutes and take a break. You're just going to go out and you're going to put in that volume. And so I don't quite understand why rowing is so different in that sense, where people are like, yeah, I'm just going to do my steady state and I'm doing intervals of 10 or intervals of 20 or intervals of 30, whatever it might be. But the reality is that it does exist, all right? And so that's a common thing in rowing. It's a common thing that people kind of take, and incorporate into their approach of steady state, which is kind of silly because steady state is steady, all right? Steady state, it's not discontinuous state. It is steady states, all right? And so, if you go for a 50-minute run, that's steady state. If you go for a 2 mile bike or 2 hour bike ride, that's steady states, all right? And so it's not discontinuous work, all right? It is steady, all right? And so in rowing, there are certainly situations that are going to be fine for doing that. Like I said, get yourself mentally conditioned as you're getting back into training, but don't do it purely for physical, all right? Don't do it if you got a tight back and taking breaks helps your back, all right? Because you're still putting X amount of volume on your back over the course, and that volume is what's going to exacerbate those issues and prevent you from moving past them, from addressing them and moving past them and get to the point where you can do truly steady state. All right, but that's it. All right, so 14 minutes. All right, that's really good for me. So thanks for listening, guys. I hope this helped. If you got questions, put it down in the comments below. I'm sure the people that disagree with me, if you do, tell me why. All right, explain it down below, and make sure you do a good job. And if you do, I will address that, and we can kind of get a little dialogue back and forth, and hopefully other people can read it, and it can help them understand the various arguments and the different perspectives and approaches a little bit more effectively. But that's it. So put your comments down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're just finding it for the first time and you found this helpful and you would like to listen to more conversations like this. Definitely give the video a thumbs up. And even better, if you believe in what I'm talking about, if it makes sense, if it resonates with you, and you would like to kind of buy in to this for your own training, check out GTS Rowing. There are some remote coaching options there, which are great for these COVID times. I'm happy to kind of work with athletes to kind of create that training outline and kind of guide you through what you guys need to be doing on a month-to-month basis. Or if you just want to connect and ask a lot of questions about your own training, you got something specific, you don't want to put them in the comments, or they're just more expansive than what a comment will justify, then connect with GTS Rowing. There's some consultation options there. You can sign up. We can connect on Zoom or a phone call, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and just talk shop about your training, troubleshooting issues, or kind of help you with your plan moving forward. But that's it. Thanks for listening, guys. This is Travis signing off. Have a great day.